Here we are, guys. The After Hours podcast, season 3 is back.
It's about time.
It's about time, right?
Yeah, it's
been way too long.
Man.
To sit here with the 3 gentlemen who actually helped me start the podcast, the After Hours podcast, at the last studio.
Yep.
You know, it's amazing to be back here together and to get back right into the swing of things. I feel like sometimes life just, so much time goes by so fast, and you know, us being in the same industry, I'm sure
Yeah.
we can all relate to a lot of similar things, and I'm grateful to have you guys back here. So this is exciting stuff.
I think what
Good to be here.
I think what makes this cool is we're in Dean's new office right
Yeah.
now.
Congratulations is in order. Dean's new office, new studio that we're in right
Appreciate
now.
that.
Yep.
So we're all excited to be here, and we appreciate you having us on for the first.
Nonetheless, though, this gentleman's talked about this for how long?
Oh yeah, it's been a while.
Oh,
Since
my
I've known
God!
you.
I feel like the first little studio that we started, you know, that did feel like home, but it was never the not that this.
It was never the long term.
No, you already knew from
long-term
the
plan.
beginning that this
Yeah.
was just going to start us off, and then we can get into a more comfortable space. I guess that worked.
You know, it's exciting because you know it's not exciting that time goes by so fast, but I feel like 3 years flew by like that.
Yeah, I know.
And I know it's been a crazy whirlwind in our industry, and you know, again, I'm just happy to have you guys here and to kind of dive back into things. I know on the After Hours podcast, we've done a lot of different stuff. We've talked about the personal development side of things. We've talked about business. I know today we actually started the episode with going to Little Vincent's in Huntington
Yeah.
Village, where the new office is.
I mean, look, some cold cheese never hurt anybody.
Exactly.
I like the regular slice, you know.
That place has been around for what, 100 years? I mean, you know better than anybody
Cash
from
only.
Huntington.
Cash
But
on.
as a Huntington native, he didn't go for the cold cheese.
No, I didn't go for the.
There was no flop. There was no.
And there was no flop.
There was
That's
not a
why I
flop
didn't-
on that.
that's
What did,
why I
what did
didn't go
David
for the
Portnoy
That's why I
rate
know.
Little Vincent's?
I'm not
'Cause he
even.
came-
I'm not even sure. But what we did found is, if you guys are gonna go there, you've got to cook this well done. You got to ask it well done.
Yes, yes.
That's pizza in
Tell me
general. I
more.
feel like pizza in general is like you got to go well done.
Yeah, we're
It's gotta be-
disappointed in Dave.
It's got to be no
Portnoy.
flop. It's got to be
Yeah.
thin and crispy.
We're
You know?
disappointed in Dave Portnoy. You should have got your pizza well done.
You know
shoulda
better.
Known better, right?
You should
shoulda
know
known
better.
Got to make sure that the bottom of that pizza is black. You know, nice and crispy.
Let's talk about the last couple of years. Not that I love talking about it. I love our industry, and I love talking about things that can educate the people out there. And I know we're all learning every day and seeing different things happen. And, you know, Gabe or any of us, Gio, Jared, I'm sure we can kind of dive right into things. And, you know, let's talk about, you know, the last year or two. You know, what's been going on outside of business and, like, what we do on a daily basis. I know there's a lot of exciting things. You know, you bought a beautiful house. I know when we started our last podcast, you know, you had just bought your new beautiful home.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
It's still working. It's always a project. You know
your
that.
viral clip about you loving your wife, I remember on one of the first episodes.
Yeah, and that was a while back. Yep. Yeah.
I mean, that's what people don't realize when they buy a home, right? How much work have?
Oh, you don't realize it's really, and again, you're buying a move-in ready home too, an updated home, but no matter what, there's always little projects, things you want to customize, things
You've
you
had a
want to
couple,
change.
couple headaches over there too.
Yeah, I did have a few headaches, got through them, and
Moving ready, my ass.
yeah, exactly.
Turnkey.
Yeah, that's what they say. That's what they say. And you know, at the end of the day, you know, you do want to make it yours, right?
Yeah,
So over time,
definitely.
you start realizing, like, all right, even though it was beautiful, we loved this house when we bought it. I want to, you know, make the changes so it feels like ours.
Right.
You know, and I feel like now over the last year, over the different things that we're starting to do, and I still have got to the house every day. Of
course.
I'm starting to feel like, you know what I mean? It's becoming my home. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
I was in my old house for probably 5-6 years, and it still felt like weird, even like not being in Belmore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, over the last year, I finally feel like I'm home. I feel like everything's moving in the right direction.
Did you you know, I know things constantly came up with the house. Did you do a lot of the projects in one shot, or did you kind of just do one thing at a time?
I
And
do a floor at a time. That's
Yeah.
what I'm basically doing. So, you know, ground level, main floor, upstairs, trying to kind of knock them out. But what ends up happening is you're almost done with one, then you start the other, and then like you feel like the whole house is under construction.
yeah,
It was kind of what it's been feeling like. And I'm someone, and everyone's like, "Yo, why don't you have a party? Why don't you have people over?" I said, "I'm not doing that
It's been
until
3
it's,
years. You can throw a party.
until it's no, but it's gotta be
What's going on?
Yeah, exactly. It's gotta be done. Ask my uncle. My uncle always says, "She's like, yo, can you invite me over for a hamburger?" He goes, "I'll bring the burgers. Like, I'll get the meat." I'm like, "Oh, it's not that. I like, you know me. I'm a perfectionist. I like it to be when you walk up, it's like, oh wow, even though people do still walk in my house and say that, I'm like, no, but you don't understand. I gotta do this, I gotta do that. That's just how I am.
Yeah.
Same way. People come here and it's always constantly like,
Yeah.
doing the next thing, and it just
You
never
don't
ends.
appreciate that moment, unfortunately.
Guys like
we're always
us,
going.
it's not about, I don't even know if it's about appreciate, yeah, it could be
Or
appreciating
you don't
the
live in that moment, maybe. Maybe not appreciate it, but more like living in the moment and enjoying it as you're going through it. I think that's, and it was, someone also was talking to me in the office. They were talking about like, oh, when you got married and you got engaged, well, like, was it exciting? Like, how was, and I'm like, to be honest, I didn't really get to enjoy that moment.
Fucking hated it.
Yeah, it was just, I'm so.
Hated every moment of it.
Yeah, you literally, you're going through it and you're like stressed out and you're not enjoying the process
Yeah.
of,
It's a job.
buying a new
At
house.
the
and,
party, why it's happening. and,
yeah,
like,
or all the the venues and getting all the getting everything kind of set up. I really tried to put most of it on Kristen and put it on my wife, but every week was something else and going somewhere else. So like you don't really enjoy it. I feel like you're more like, all right, we got to get this done, we got to get this done, and I'm so locked in on work, and I'm like every minute out of the office to me was stressful.
Yeah, yeah.
That's just how it was because it's tough times in the business in 2023 when I was getting married, buying a new house, and that same year of 2023 was also a really weird time in the business.
Crazy.
It was, if you look back on it now, like 23 was a very weird year. 'Cause
now
you weren't
even-
sure where it was going.
2025, fast forward, I
Yeah.
feel like we're still in the same, not position because we're all in different positions, but we're still thinking the same
Still
thing.
waiting
we
on
were
rates to
thinking
drop.
Then.
Yeah.
Like, when is it gonna happen?
Yeah.
When are things gonna not change, but get, not easier, but change, get
Yeah,
different?
yeah.
When are we gonna see that shift? Us all, again, being in the same industry and relating, and I'm sure you could speak about that because I've always, I compliment you all the time when I see you put up the numbers you put up and through the challenging times and to stay that consistent. I've always commended you. Forget being my friend. I know you
Yeah.
might not think I'm serious, but
Right.
to
I appreciate it.
to stay consistent and to do the things that all of us have done during a time where you hear the older people in the industry say, "We've never seen anything like this."
Yeah.
Right.
It's been 40 or 50 years where the home sales are down. The mortgage rates are higher than they were. We're seeing historic numbers,
Yeah.
not in a positive
Exactly,
way.
not in a positive way. And you're also getting, people that have been in the business for 20, 30 years are telling you, oh no, this is actually worse than 2008.
Yeah.
And you're like, really? Like, oh wow. So now that obviously sheds some light on where you're really at right now. And if you're able to make it through these times, I mean, there's nothing but up, obviously, from here. You know what I mean? And obviously, progress. And I think we're moving in the right direction. It feels like we're starting to, see the light at the end of the tunnel with
Yeah,
where the market's headed, I think.
I'd say so.
I agree. Obviously, we all operate a little bit differently than I feel like most people out there in our businesses. And even going back to when you and I started together in 2000, and I think it was 18 when we started in the industry
Yeah,
together.
when we started together, yeah.
I can't even imagine, like, if I pictured my life, what was that? It's almost 10 years now.
Almost, yeah. It was like
About
8 years ago.
7 or 8 years ago.
Yeah.
I could never imagine, my life, just, having a daughter, having a family, starting a new opportunity in business and expanding what we had in Woodbury. And I just never imagined things to happen this way, whether it's a positive thing or a bad thing or whatever it is. I don't think you ever really, truly realize, like, when life goes by so fast, like,
Yeah.
I can't believe how I got here. If that makes sense.
I was just gonna say before, like it just goes to show like how we're always looking to move to the next thing, right? Move on to the next thing, and in the moment we're just sitting there. We're just sitting there, just trying to get by and just
To get to the next- whatever the next thing is.
Get this done so we can just move on and just get back to work. Or
And that goes back, I feel like, to even when you're a kid, right? Like when you're a kid, like I want to be older. I want to do the things the older
That
kids are
stopped
doing.
at 25. Once I hit
Yeah.
25, I want to get younger.
Yeah, you start
Younger.
going backwards, right?
We
I
used to
know.
want to be 18 and 21. Then when we turned 21, I'm like, I can't even get into Hanu in the village. I got to be 25.
can't even rent a car.
You can't rent a car, exactly, until
Exactly.
you're 25. So I
25.
feel like there's always that then you're like, I want to be
what's next?
30, so I have kids, and then I want to make more money, so I want to be 40.
Yeah.
I feel like it's always the constant change.
I want to be
but-
established. I want this, and all of a sudden, it's just like you're trying to get to the next level in life without truly enjoying the actual journey going through it.
I think, Jared, you're one that truly enjoys. I know
Yeah.
you always have, no matter what situations going on or whether it's positive or adversity, you always have that light
Right.
under you and shining on you. And I that's something I've always, loved about you, because I feel like no matter what's happening, you stay the course and you stay forward thinking. And that's
No, I
so
appreciate
important. Not just in
It's
life,
work.
but in our
It's work.
industry.
It's like a job in itself. You know, But when you truly feel a certain way and you want something, of course, you make sure that if you do everything that you know you're supposed to be doing, even if you fall off course a little bit,
Couple
you
steps
know,
back, put you
you
at
get
10
back
steps
on track.
forward.
Well,
you
the
know?
consistency of
Right.
continuing to push forward and do it is
Right.
eventually going to get you out of the hole you're in, or get you past what you're looking to get past, or get you through what it is, whatever it is.
I mean, like you said though, it's work, right? Like I know you to be like such a family man, and you're so into kids, and you're so into just being there for your family first above all else, and you're so positive while doing that and going to work and grind.
easy.
It's not, but what
And a dog, that's another job.
Listen,
Yeah.
yeah.
I thought I would-
I don't realize a dog is okay as a
A
kid.
big dog at that is a lot of
Yeah.
work.
what I'm trying to say is though is that just as much it's work to be positive,
Right.
It's so easy for us to be negative. It's so easy.
It's harder. to be
It's
positive than it is
it's
to
a
be
muscle that you got to work. If you're not working on how to be positive every day, it's so easy to because we're naturally born to go into this fight or
Think about how
flight.
many bad things, not bad things. Think about how many things that could throw your mood off or whatever it is, stress you out on a daily basis. If you let all of those little things
I'm ready to flip
affect
my desk at least 5 times a
Yeah,
day,
right.
Right.
and throw a temper tantrum.
Right.
Like
But that goes into not letting a bad moment turn
1,000%.
right. That goes back to never letting a bad moment turn into a bad day, because that could happen so many times
Yeah.
in your life, and you could have a bad moment that could turn into a bad day, and it can continue.
You
on.
could have a
It can
bad
let that
week, it'll turn into a bad
Yeah,
month, a
yeah,
bad
yeah.
quarter turns
That's
into a
all-
bad year.
It's all in your head.
Domino
What's
effect.
in your head.
Yeah, yeah.
As much as it's work, it's to me it's like almost like instilled in me.
Yeah.
Like I'm a big believer in you're a product of your environment.
Yeah.
Whether it's your immediate environment or the outside environment, or where you live or where you go to school. But for me, seeing the way that my father was with all of his kids and my siblings, I took that in a lot. I was lucky enough to have a loving family that showed me that love. They may not have had it all. Some had it all. Some were miserable. Some were happy. But my immediate circle, everyone chipped in, from the immediate circle to the outside circle. And a lot of the times life wasn't the best, but I was almost not tricked, but I was just around so much positivity that I was distracted from it.
Yeah.
So I took that, and
You get the biggest-
now I
No,
just
that's
stay
who you-
distracted.
Yeah,
from
The
the
biggest
best.
family reunion of all time every
Yes,
year when I see
on
it.
both
So
sides.
It's amazing to have that.
Yeah, we got a
No,
big
that's-
family.
that's
It's
great.
amazing to have that support
Yeah.
system around you, and I know you value that so much, and
Yes.
it's commendable for anybody.
Yes.
A lot of people get caught up, and I see it happen with family and friends and other people, and even myself.
Yeah.
We get so caught up in our day-to-day of our business and our personal stuff and what we have going on.
Right.
We just forget about the things around us that truly make us happy. Our family, our cousins, the people we don't see every day and week and month, and to make time to show importance to those things.
Right.
Those are the moments you genuinely remember, right? Are those
Yeah, of
times
course.
with your family, with your friends, right? With the
Yeah,
people
of
you actually
course.
love.
Kids won't remember the money.
No, of course.
They're not gonna, they're gonna remember the times that we
No,
had.
but
They're
they're
gonna
gonna
remember
remember the
the
times.
places that the money allowed for us to go. But they're
Yeah.
not gonna remember.
I've always, I heard this from somebody who was a very successful person, comes from a great family background, and he might not have been there his whole life, but, he says he uses money. Some people use money as, I feel like, a tool to do certain things. If money's gonna be the only reason that wakes you up in the morning, you're never gonna be happy.
Yeah.
No, that's not enough.
It's never enough.
That's not enough.
It's never enough.
Yeah,
No
that's
matter
not-
what level you hit, no matter how many loans we
can't
close,
make it about
no matter how
money.
much money we make,
Yeah, it can't be about
it's
money.
never going to be enough, because guys that are driven like us, we always want to advance to that next level, advance to that next level. So whether it's not being, like you said before, in the moment and appreciating the moment, I can speak for myself, it'll never be enough.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you don't enjoy the moments. Like when I took my daughter last weekend to Disney.
Yeah.
No matter how much is going on in my life, and whether it's business or distractions or
I mean, even
positivity, I'll always make time to do those
do
things.
those things.
You have to.
even for yourself lately, I've noticed you started.
No, yeah, definitely.
You've been vacationing a little bit more.
Yeah.
Not vacationing, but more so like just getting out of New
Just
York
enjoy-
and,
just
and,
en-
and,
enjoying
enjoy,
life.
enjoying yourself a
You
little
have
bit
to.
more.
You have to. And we get so caught up in our industry and in our lives, and not that my schedule is busier than anybody else's, and I do that to myself. I'm a creator of my environment.
Yeah.
You have to make times to do those things. I choose certain like if I know I'm in Florida, I could be accessible to our industry. We chose to be in this business. You know what I'm saying? So if we know that we're not going to do the things we know to get as much out of it as possible, it's never going to work. If I just turned my phone off and took my daughter to Disney for a couple days, I'm not going to, I'm not going to ever get to where I want to be. But I know that I have to kind of, not that and I've said this before, I'm a big believer in balance is tough at our age. And at any point in a career that you haven't got to the point where you want to be at, but there has to be something. There has to be some form of balance. You can't work 100 hours a day and think that you're going to have time to do other things.
No.
So if you're one that, like, I always get mad at myself for not starting my day early enough or working late enough or whatever it is, if you just find that right time or that amount of time to address the things that mean something to you, whether it's, sometimes I'll wake up and I'll just drive to see my daughter and take her to breakfast because I know that later on I have something to do. Whatever it is, I've tried to get better at lately, just making time to show importance to the things we know mean something to us.
It's those little things. Like even just
course.
the other day, again, me, I'm not one to leave work early, right?
Yeah.
Early to me is leaving work at 7
You took one
o'clock.
vacation in 10 years,
Yeah.
I know you.
Leaving early to me is leaving the office at like 7 o'clock at night. But I knew Kristen was coming home from the train, you know what I mean? And I was like, let me just do something nice. I'm like, what time's your train getting in? And I made it a thing to just stop what I was doing, cut it off, no matter what it is, I could deal with it tomorrow, and go pick her up. That little thing that you do, it's a small moment, but, that means something.
I think it's also hard sometimes discerning from what's important and what's not, right? Identifying, like, what can really wait till tomorrow? Does it need to be done right this second? Right? Does it need to be handled? If it doesn't get handled, what's going to happen? I started asking myself that a little bit more. If I don't take this call right now, if I don't problem solve,
If you don't take the call right now, they're going to another bank, guaranteed.
They're calling Dean.
What if I don't handle the call? What if I pick up the call and just say, like, hey, like, I see that you called. Your call's important to me, but I can't talk at this moment.
Deal with it and put it off till the right time. Right. Yeah.
That's 100%. I feel like
the
that's
way,
something that somebody came into our office a couple of years ago and he said, I don't care, I hate to talk like this, but I don't care if you're on the toilet, pick your phone up. Whether it's to tell me you'll call me right back or shoot me a text, which is when I set up that stuff on my phone to reply to people.
Yeah.
If you're not going to be available when someone gives you an opportunity to help them, that's what we do every day. At least pick up the phone, have some decency to say, I'll call you back in 5 minutes.
100%.
Whatever it is.
Absolutely.
I used to struggle with that and think that you could just push things off and then you see what happens. You lose an opportunity.
Yeah.
Not that you're hurting somebody else, you're hurting yourself.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because there's a lot of us out there. Not that I know we all think like we're always going to be positive and think
No, there's
best at what we do.
there's
but
always someone else ready to pick up
there's
that
always
phone
another
call.
Gabe, Dean, Gio, or Jared out there that's available, and that just comes with what we do. And
I mean, and that's actually one of my biggest fears. Like when I see a number
I'm gonna lose that you're gonna lose that deal.
Yeah,
if
that I don't-
if you don't deal with
a
it.
number
that's
that I
me
don't
too.
know.
That's why I'm like how I am. I'm like, if you don't deal with it, if you don't work on that, like you're gonna lose it. Like, but it's not gonna happen. But that's just where your mindset
Yeah,
goes.
100%.
Like I gotta take care of it. I'm not going home till my phone stops ringing until I'm completely done. And
I catch myself every day,
You know?
going through a task list or looking at things that we know we need to do to get done to, be okay with the day or whatever it is. And it's I've always said, and people I feel like look at me like I'm crazy sometimes. I'm like, I could work for 3 months in a row because you could always think of something to do. Right. That's just how my brain goes. It's constantly thinking like, okay, like I understand that it's 9 o'clock, so I can't call people now, but I could send 10,000 emails. I could fix this. I could start this system. I'm behind on this, or whatever it is. So it's just like a constant chase.
no matter what, you could like you said, it's not a 9 to 5.
I'm okay with it.
It's not a clock in, clock out business.
No, it's not. It's not.
So you have to make sure you're available at all times because things that when people call you for if something important, you have to at least deal with it to an extent.
Yeah.
Like you said, you know what I mean? If you can put it off, then put it off. But yeah, if you don't deal with it, you will lose that deal or something, worse can happen for your client, for your borrower.
I think part of it too is, in my mind, the way I look at it is, people are buying the most expensive thing that they'll ever buy, right? So the amount of anxiety that someone has going through the process of looking for a home or during the process of signing the contract or or through the mortgage process, they have more anxiety than we do.
Yeah, of course.
Right?
Especially who's never done it before.
So
You know?
sometimes I feel that not picking up the phone or not
Stresses them
addressing
out
it.
more.
Freaking
Yeah.
They're freaking out. They
Right?
don't have an answer.
And then it makes me nervous that like, oh, I don't want this person to go to sleep
Yeah.
feeling this way. I would hate that.
Yeah, no, you're right. You put yourself in those person's shoes.
But that means
and
you're a
you
good
realize-
human being.
Yeah.
You know, thinking about other people, because it is probably the biggest investment of their life.
Definitely, yeah.
And
And they don't know what to expect. They don't know what they're going into. All
they
they know
we
is
are. They kind of know us. They don't even
No.
know who they're dealing with
But
to
all
lend
they-
them with the money with.
But all they know is you're the only guy that's going to be able to explain it to them, really, at the end of the day. So that's why you're the only person that they can go to and rely on.
I have we have a good amount of new people in our office right now, and the biggest question that I get as a lot of them go through their day to day is, what are does it ever get easier? Does it ever get easier, going through the bullshit? Does it ever get easier dealing with the problems at hand? Does it ever get easier when a deal's about to die?
Right.
Right? And my answer is always the same: is it never gets easier. You just get better at dealing with it.
I was gonna say,
That's a good way to
it
put it.
never gets easier, but the busier you get and the more things you have to deal with, you just learn to build the system to deal with it better.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not gonna get
Exactly.
easier.
No.
You just learn how to deal with
Yeah,
it
it's
in a different
repetition.
way.
Exactly.
It's repetition, just like in the gym. Which,
Yeah, in the
you know,
gym,
muscle memory.
basketball, it just
Yeah,
if you
in
want to
anything
get better
in
at
life, right?
shooting free throws, you shoot free throws.
Exactly.
You know, you shoot
In
500
anything in life, right? If you, especially again, if you're with sports, right?
Mm-hmm.
You start early enough, right? And you're hitting that golf ball at 2 years old,
Don't stress me out about golf, man.
right? But you know, of all people, like, yeah, when you start early enough, and it's, again, you put the time in and you practice and you put in the work, of course you could be a star.
Becomes
You
muscle
could
memory.
become a
Just like
professional.
any-
Yeah,
any
exactly.
life.
You can do whatever it is that's a true statement. You really can do whatever you put your mind to and put the work in.
You know, talking about life, I kind of want to get into something a little bit different so we can, share some stuff with the audience and, give value. That's why we do this thing. I want to ask you guys kind of like, and whoever wants to start can start, like, if you never decided to get into the mortgage business, and let's talk about kind of how we started our journey, but
Yeah.
do you have any idea like what we'd be doing or what you'd be doing
I'd
if
be
we
a
didn't
teacher and a
take this
football
journey?
coach.
Teacher
Yeah,
and a
you'd be a
football
gym
coach.
teacher and football coach,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
I can see
I
that.
can see- I can see you on the football
teacher,
field.
guidance counselor.
Yeah.
Why, is that something, did you?
I'm gonna coach football at some point.
I said this,
Yeah.
we were at the game a couple of weeks ago, and I said to myself, as I'm seeing all the coaches on the field, I said, I would love to get involved
Yeah.
with coaching a golf program, even
Yeah.
at our age now. I feel like people do that later in life, but I
Listen,
would
it's
love to
one
be a part of
season.
something like that.
You
man.
know, if you choose to coach one sport, it's one season.
That's right.
You know, you can make sure that and our jobs, like you said, we're self-employed. You're not clocking in. You know, you can make sure that
You make
set up
time to
our
do that.
day to make sure that
There's time to
we
do it, yeah,
accomplish
to get
this amount of work and then go and coach. And then if we need to go back and do our work,
Yeah.
we can.
I mean, putting ourselves around people to create a network, just like in sports and like in the community.
Yeah,
mean,
I was just about to say.
That's business
Yeah,
too,
yeah.
not that you should look
Listen,
at it.
timing is everything, though. You don't want to do that your first or second year in the business. First, second year, third year, you want to be
No, you gotta be
pounding
100%
and
you gotta
learn
be
as much as
full-time,
you
man.
can.
Or be hitting the
People
pavement.
around you.
Yeah.
Somebody asked me yesterday a great question. He said, Dean, how did you build up as many referral partners as you have, and how did you get to the point to where you're as consistent as you are in business? And I get asked that question all the time, and I feel like I always have the same exact answer because the answer's not going to change. The story's not going to change. My response is the truth. I don't have 100 real estate professionals and 50 financial advisors, and this person sends Dean all his business. I don't have that. I feel like a lot of people that start to kind of get to talk about something a little different. People always start in this business, I feel like nowadays, and they assume that you're the biggest networker and you have the most realtors,
the most
and you're getting the
relationships,
most
yeah,
relationships. Very seldom does somebody come to me and say, how many phone calls a day did you make when you got into the business?
Yeah, right. No
Or
one asks that
did you-
question,
Did
yeah.
you dial leads, or did you pound the phones?
Yeah, it's like, how many realtors did you have?
I feel like
Yeah,
we
that's- yeah,
used to
yeah.
talk about that stuff a lot when
Yeah.
bringing in new people and starting with new blood. It's not the same way anymore. I feel
No,
like
we
people
were
see
brought up old school.
social media, as much as we use it to our advantage.
Yeah.
A lot of new people that get into sales businesses or customer service businesses,
Mm-hmm.
they're not educated, as to how a lot of us started. I tell them, I wish I had 100 relationships that my phone rang, 100 times a day, and, Dean, do my mortgage, you're the best in the world, and it went as smooth as that. But when I start to tell them, you know, the stories of how we started and how I started even before we met, and
Yeah.
it's like people seem so confused.
Yeah, they're like,
seem
they
so
literally look at you like, really?
Like I have
you
to
pounded
do,
the phone? I gotta call people?
and even forget just
Like,
pounding
what do
the
you think you're gonna
phone.
do?
You know,
Yeah.
It's
stay-
not sexy.
No,
Staying
it's not. It's
consistent
not.
with-
Listen, it's not an attractive, you know what I mean, process to getting.
Staying consistent with pounding the phone, making sure you separate yourself from people just to create good karma. I'm a
100%.
believer in
Yeah.
what you put out there is what you create.
Oh, 100.
You know,
Yeah,
I'm a big
100%.
believer, and I've became lately, you know, more of a big believer in faith, and you know, the things you put out there is what you
will get
receive
back,
in
yeah.
return. And you know, to go back to kind of what we were talking about, like, no, I tell them, you know, no, I didn't stay at my desk. I stayed at my desk for the first 4, 5, 6 years. I learned the business. I did things that I didn't know any better than what I was doing,
Yeah.
and I wouldn't change a thing. I would not change a thing. You know, I didn't learn, you know, just go out there and hope for the best, which I feel like so many people nowadays do.
Yeah.
I learned that, you know, it's scientifically proven that in any industry, the amount you put out there, you're going to receive X amount in return.
Laws of average.
So
Yep.
I'm grateful to learn from the people I learned from, you know, Keith and my father and the old school guys that, you know, showed me the way to be, you know, that I picked up on, which is
It's
how we all
discipline,
kind of
isn't it?
learned.
It's discipline.
It's discipline.
It really
It's not
is.
easy, but
It's
guys
being able
nowadays,
to take the no.
they don't
you know?
get it. They
No,
don't understand it.
No one wants to sit
They
there
think
all
that
day
you
and-
could just buy the houses and the real estate and take your family on vacation all the time and have the nice cars and the life,
No, they
you know,
don't-
by just showing up to a networking event.
They
I
don't
feel
see.
like.
They don't see the true process.
And that might insult some people, but it's the truth.
Yeah.
You know, you have to put the work in an industry like ours where it's fast moving. There's always going to be somebody with a different program. And if you're speaking to somebody different, they might not think it's a different program. They might just say, okay, well, he offered me something that sounds better. Let me just go with him.
Yeah.
You know, so if you're not educating people, and, you know, that all comes from the way we started, the way I started,
Yeah.
you know, learning how to speak to somebody on the phone and have a relationship. Like if you just show up somewhere and you start talking about something, it's so easy. Like when we're all talking to somebody at a restaurant or, you know, about buying something, a product, you know right away if somebody's not like on point 1,000,000%. You could tell.
Right.
Like this person has no idea what they're talking about.
Yeah.
You know, so I feel like such a big issue nowadays in the real estate
I-
business, you know, people aren't educated. It's not, you know, I think it's an application issue, but it's also an education
Yeah.
issue, you know, and the education issue comes from the application problem, not working, not like doing the things you need to do to learn the business. You can't just go out there. You know, you have to educate yourself.
100%. You have to educate the people too, because like you
Truly
said,
believe that.
you know, people again they think that they heard something else somewhere else, and if you don't educate them on the difference, right, or what they're actually up against, right, or what type of borrower they are, if you don't explain it to them, they don't know.
And you can't educate somebody until you educate yourself, and that's
I mean,
what we always go back to, you know?
and especially in our business too. And I bet Jared, you're a little bit greener, you know, than I mean, you're a little bit newer than us, no?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, you didn't come in with confidence, right? You had to learn the products, you had to learn the business to gain confidence.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Education builds confidence, right? Then
Repetition.
Yep. Education, repetition, doing it day in and day out. Right. Then
That's how you get confidence.
Another big question you get all the time is, well, how did you build the confidence? How do you know all these things? I just learned.
Yeah.
Right. I made sure that when I came in, I wasn't looking to knock it out of the park. I just wanted to learn as much as I could.
Yeah.
Right.
Some people come into industries in different situations, a different financial situation, or, you know, whatever it is, and that changes like how they are.
Yeah,
Like if you
100%.
come in with a ton of pressure, you're gonna put pressure on yourself and the people around you. And I've been guilty of that myself, you know, when you live a lifestyle, like going back to 2022, going into 23, and I've spoke about it publicly on the podcast, and I always share these stories. You know, I went through one of the toughest times financially in my life, and it doesn't sound serious to some people because money's not everything. That's not what I'm saying. You know, health issues and things you can't control, you know, those things are here compared to obviously the money.
Yeah.
But, you know, I got into a situation a couple of years ago that I never imagined being in. You know, we worked so hard in our 20s and in the industry, and we were so successful at such a young age, and, you know, to go through a challenging time as I had a daughter, you know, her mother and I were separated. As much as we have a fantastic relationship, she's the best mother in the world, and that's great. You know, I went through a tough time for myself a couple of years ago, and, everybody was, not everybody, but a lot of people were telling me, what they thought I should do. You should file bankruptcy, you should make this decision, you should do this, because that's what they thought probably would work for them. When I realized, I took a step back and I realized, like, the reason I got into this industry is to, number one, help people. That's like the number one thing.
Yeah.
I don't care what anybody says.
No.
Again, going back to what I said before, what you put out there is what you get. So the more good you do, the more good you're going to receive. So the reason I got into this business is to try to help people. Now I know you can make a ton of money in doing so also, which is another reason I got into this business. And if you're not going to admit that, I feel like that's not the truth. You don't get into doing something just because you love it if it doesn't make you any money.
That's all,
you know what I'm saying?
That's that's the reason I got into. That's all I saw.
So to go back to what I was saying is I went through a time where it's like you made all this money for 5 or 6, 7, 8 years. I had a daughter. I bought houses. I bought real estate. I had everything that I thought was perfect, that I thought was the perfect life. And then in like the blink of an eye, the business changed. The industry changed. And it happened so fast where now I'm sitting there and I have this lifestyle that, you try to keep up with the Joneses and do all these things. And nobody on the outside probably thought that I was dealing with something.
No one
because
knows, of course, right?
I always thought I was good at putting a mask on, which I don't necessarily think that's the best way to even be, because, as you build relationships and you get close with people, that's what family and friend, that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
To be able to open up to people and to share with people what we're going through. So it was probably the first time in my life where, like, I swallowed my pride and I had to say to myself and the people around me, I can't control where I am right now, but I'm here. And what am I going to do to fix the problem? And it might only sound like it was a financial problem, but a lot of the times financial problems lead to other problems, if you don't know how to deal with it properly.
Yeah.
So when I went through that time where, I got separated, I had to move out, I had to buy another house, I had all these bills, it was a tough time in business, we all know. It was, 22 to 23 was, still is, but it was one of the toughest years, in 50 years in our business.
Yeah.
And to be in that situation, I remember I just woke up one day and I did all the math and I'm like, how did I get here? It's not even like possible. It happened so fast.
Yeah.
Because I was always a pride person, I don't want to change my life and I don't want to stop doing what I'm doing, because people say like money buys happiness. I never believed that. I think money makes you enjoy things more. Like I love, like, again, like traveling with my daughter, and we go on vacations, all of us, and we do nice things, we drive nice cars, and we get to do things for our family. I enjoy that, but when I realized that I'm in a situation that I might not be able to get out of, it was a feeling that I could never even imagine being back there. And again, to circle back, when everybody was telling me you should do this and, take the easy way out, and I sat there and said to myself, that's not who I am. That's not who I am. And I vented to all my close people around me. This is not who I am. I'm going to figure it out. And God, blessed me. I truly believe that, because a lot of the things I feel like I put into, myself and my business and my life and my family, when God saw me going through a challenging time, I feel like I truly believe He was there for me. And it changed so fast. Like, it was like one day I woke up and out of nowhere, I met this person that led to this opportunity, that led to this opportunity, that led to 10 more opportunities. Along the way, I was doing my part, of course, or it wouldn't have happened that way. But, I was in the biggest financial hole of my life, and out of nowhere, I met people that changed my life, from a client, perspective.
But I think that also, that time also probably was shedding some light on also just life in general, and going through a situation that you've never gone through before.
Things that need to change.
Yeah, well, think about it. Now that you're more faithful, now that you look at life a little different, that's part of, the results of what you went through, right? Is looking at life a little differently and being like, wow, take a step back a little bit. You know what I mean? And now you are able to enjoy those times and go on vacation, and you are able to come out of it and be bigger than you were before. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you
So-
never think it's going to happen to you
No,
until
no.
you're in the situation, no matter what it is. You know, whether it's you get hurt at playing pickleball, like that happened that time, and my wrist hurts 5 years later. No matter what situation it is, you never know until it's happening. You know, and that was something I never could have imagined. And you know, I'm grateful that I was raised, old school from my father, and he taught me tough love. You know,
Yeah.
there's no handouts. You know, you got yourself into a situation, you get yourself out of it. And I respect that more than anything, because I see so many people that we all know that they get handouts, you always get bailed out, and that's never going to teach you to become, who you need to be to deal with life,
Yeah.
It's just never
You
gonna
got to fall
happen.
down to get back up, man.
Getting out of that is a perfect example of the harder you work, the luckier you get.
Yeah, I love that line. It's one of my
Yeah.
I
favorite
love that
lines
line. The
of all
harder you
time.
work, the luckier you get. Like in tough times like those, like we just keep chugging, keep going,
chugging away.
and keep going. And as we continue to go along, if we stay on course, the opportunities will come up.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the most important thing is being able to make sure that we capture.
Yeah,
those
making sure you take
opportunities,
advantage of them
taking
when they are.
advantage of
there.
the opportunities, and
And be grateful for the opportunities
Yeah.
also, which sometimes as it's
nurture.
happening, you don't realize.
That's what I'm saying. You
Nurture the
appreciate that, what you got out of it,
right,
pretty much.
nurturing the opportunities.
But did we go about what you getting into this industry? What changed for you, or where do you think you'd be today if you didn't get into the mortgages?
I feel like when I got into the mortgage business, you were like, oh, you're a big, tough mortgage guy.
Well, no, because I remember we were.
When you got into I didn't even know what you fucking did for all these years.
right?
I had no idea. I didn't even know what a mortgage was.
Yeah, I know, because like you just kept moving from state to state. Like,
I just
moving from state to state.
I definitely I've always thought about I even think about this now. It's like what if I quit tomorrow? Like what would I do? I always think about
figure
this.
it out.
And I would have no idea.
don't know, right?
I have no idea. I always
When you're in it, you're like, wait, what else would I do?
have no idea.
Yeah, I think the same.
no,
Sometimes.
I'd probably like work at Starbucks or something.
Yeah,
Just-
I think I'd probably be.
Do you remember how you got into the bed? Because I remember how I did. Not to like go back into like me, but I was in Nassau Community College. I remember, and the only reason I went to college was because I played golf. And again, come from an old school family.
Could have been the
My-
next
my-
Tiger Woods.
My grandfather was around at the time still, and I just remember education, education, education. So I just had to do it for myself and for the people around me. I just felt like it was something I had to do. So I was never like the most studious, or if that's even a word. I never. It's not that I wasn't good on tests. I just didn't apply myself. So I didn't like being in class or whatever it was.
Did your father
So
ever want you to come to the office? Was he ever like, hey, come to the office?
I
Or
was. So
what was
my
your
father?
dad's
My father
point of
met
view on
Keith
it?
in 2012 or
Okay.
2010, somewhere around that time.
Okay.
And I remember he met this guy that hung around all these cool people, all these mortgage guys that made tons of money. And, it was amazing to be young and see what was happening, but I didn't understand it yet. And you were close with me back then, so
Yeah.
you kind of probably remember it. I never understood, like, what's going on? Like, what's
See
happening?
all the cars and
Yeah. And my father
Boys.
was always a little, I feel like, I want to say smarter than the people he hung around, back then.
Yeah.
And a lot of them were very impulsive spenders, and they did things out of their means. And my father was always there, and his famous line was, always stay even keel. Because no matter what happens in life, whether it's good times or bad times, if you stay the course and stay even keel, you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
If you live above your means, or if you do things that you shouldn't be doing, or whatever it is, you're going to get into a situation like I did. So to grow up around all these people, I was probably, 8, 9, 10 years old, and back then the mortgage industry was a lot different than it is now. It wasn't regulated where you have to be licensed like we do now. It was a different animal, you know what I'm saying? And it was a lot different to make money. People didn't need a license. So when you don't need a license, that makes people do things they probably shouldn't do. Not that I would do that. I'm speaking for, what happened as an industry whole. When it was less regulated, people did things they probably shouldn't have done. So
Yeah.
I remember, when I graduated high school, it was 2012. It was the only year I ever went to summer school. I never went to summer school my whole life until senior year. And, that.
Insane senior year.
Yeah, senior year, I remember. And
Going to summer school senior year.
it was in the plan.
It's
It was
really
wild.
something. It's really something, bro.
That's brutal.
Never, my whole life. And then senior year, I'm in summer school, and I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, at least I'm going to Nassau. I'm going to play golf. I'm going to try to make
Not
something of
freshman,
myself.
not sophomore,
I might
not
transfer
junior.
somewhere. And So whatever, we get to Nassau, you I think went to Nassau too, and, I'm in the athletic program. It's a phenomenal program. People sometimes think, I feel like Nassau doesn't have good athleticism, but they have phenomenal athletes.
We got some athletes out here on the
maybe
island, man.
you didn't apply yourself, whatever it was. So I was at Nassau. The first year went great. That's kind of when I got really good at golf. In high school I was okay, but in college, I had that year or two after high school to practice, so I became a lot better. And I won some tournaments. The coach loved me. I was number one on the team. Everything was great. But then school hit me. Eventually I was getting letters from the school. I wasn't in class enough. The absences. So I kind of fought my way through it the first year. Whatever happened, I remember that second semester I dropped out. I completely dropped out of school. I didn't want to do it anymore. A couple months had gone by. I wanted to get back into golf, so they kind of brought me back, and then that following semester I restarted again. I ended up getting through another semester in college, so this is my second full semester. I have no credits because I never show up to class. Not that I'm proud of that. The chair's breaking already. So I have no credits at this point. I'm just doing whatever I can to stay on the golf team and to try to get to where I think in my brain I can be with golf.
Yeah.
Not knowing anything about this industry and the mortgages and any of that yet. So eventually, I go back, like I say, for that third semester, and a couple of months go by, and my coach comes to me, Coach Delaquilla, who I remember, who I actually called him a couple of months ago. He's like 90 years old now in Florida, and he remembered, vividly. That year I got a notice from the I think it was NCJA, it was the junior college, that I was no longer allowed to be in the athletic program because of my attendance and because of my schooling. So that's where I was like, I have no idea what the heck is going on. I went and worked at random restaurants. We still lived in Huntington at that time, I remember, my father and I. I worked at a couple of random restaurants throughout the village. I had no idea what direction I wanted to go in. Just had no idea whatsoever. I always figured out a way to have some money and have some money in my pocket and whatever it was, but I never had an idea back then of what direction I wanted to head in. And what you kind of said, did my father ever let me come to him in Keith's office? I never had that opportunity because they didn't want me around those people,
Those guys.
the way the industry was back then.
Yeah.
Back then.
Yeah.
So to kind of fast forward, I worked at random restaurants. I remember I'm at some diner in Hop Hog, and, I never lasted because I just knew something was wrong. It just was not enough. Not that you can't make great money and be happy.
It didn't feel right.
It wasn't who I
It
was.
wasn't
Yeah.
fulfilling, bro.
And at that point, I didn't have the best relationship with, my family, because I dropped out of college and my grandparents were alive still, and, it just wasn't the best ideal situation at that time. But eventually, whatever happened, as Keith and my father, obviously my dad wasn't the mortgage guy, Keith was back then, and when they started their office and they had people start working there, and as they grew, I always said, please let me come, just let me, do something here. I just want to be a part of what's happening.
Yeah.
So eventually he let me come to the office, and as I said before, the way I learned and some of us learned, they gave me a list of people and said, hey, dial the phone.
Yep.
Here's a pitch, here's what you have to say. If you get the person on the phone, you connect them to this person who's licensed. You can't talk about interest rates, you can't talk about certain things, whatever it was. They told me what to do. This is the God's honest truth. I remember the first phone call I made was a gentleman who I connected with the loan officer, and if I could almost remember vividly that deal closed, it was like the first person I dialed on the list, not the first sheet. The first person answered the phone, and I connected with the gentleman in our office, and it turned into something, whether it was a closing or a relationship, and I still didn't understand it. I still didn't get it, but at least now I was in the environment. I saw that people were successful. I kind of started to get a taste of what I thought success was. Yeah. So then Keith and my father kind of made me a deal. They said, hey, we would like you to get licensed because then you could start speaking to people a different way. And I was 19 at the time. I had no idea what was going on. And I remember I said, okay, I'm all in. I'll do whatever I can to pass my test and get licensed. And You know, I'm 19. I have a head start on everybody. No one gets licensed at 19. You know, failed my test once. You know, you got to wait a month after you fail. Failed my test twice. You got to wait another month after you fail. Failed my test 3 times, and after I failed that third time, you know, you have to wait 6 months. You know, in our industry to get that license. So, I just remember so clearly after that third time that I failed, it was it. That was it. I was just mentally distraught. I went back to just playing golf. I wanted to be like a golf pro. I didn't know what to do. I'm like, if life is this hard and if being successful is this hard, you know, just forget it. I didn't have the mindset that a lot of us have now, and I just kind of gave up. And just to kind of fast forward again, I remember a couple of months went by, and I remotivated myself, and I remember Mark Hussey, actually, somebody who worked with us. I remember I went back to take my test that first time, you know, and I finally studied. I never really studied the first 3 times. So I finally studied.
Gotta study for
I
it.
got an 83 on the test. I passed my test. And I remember walking back to our Hot Pog office, like, everybody, like, was out front, and, like, just so happened to be when I walked outside, and I had my paper, so I was, like, holding up my paper, and that was, like, the best feeling in the world. You know, not knowing what was going to come next, but knowing that what I couldn't accomplish the last 4 years, or whatever the time frame was, I finally did it. You know, that was the year. That was August of 2017. So that January, we were going to the new bank where I met Giovanni at.
Yeah.
You know, and then that was like the start of something,
the
you know,
beginning.
that I never knew we'd be here now.
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
kinda
so
wild.
Yeah. So 2018, when I met you at Meadowbrook.
It was January 2018. That's
Yeah,
what-
like obviously you met me,
You
and I
just started,
seemed
yeah.
so knowledgeable, and
Yeah,
I knew the business. I knew like what we
'Cause you
had
were
to
around
do.
it,
Like
yeah.
I knew like how to explain loans to people, and like I knew what we had to do.
Yeah.
But
you were knowledgeable already at that.
But that
point.
was where like it started to like, I started to think to myself like, there's something more. Like what is it? Like that's like kind of where it started. You know, I met Giovanni. You know, we were working on the same team together. You know, I knew that we had to be the best in the room, obviously. Like, we can't be the worst. We got to be the best somehow. You know, we had a lot of successful guys around us, and you know, you asked Giovanni.
Successful sales floor.
Yeah,
you know?
6 months to a year later, after us just starting together, people started looking at us like, yo, these are the guys.
Yeah.
You know, these are the guys. You know, these guys are here before me. They're here after me. They're putting up numbers now. You know, and like, what are they doing?
And what was funny is the numbers we were putting up then. We used to, because we were so close, we were mad about those numbers
Frustrated.
too, like really frustrated. So it's just funny to look back as like, yeah, the beginning of just starting out, like that's actually we're doing great if you think about it, you know. But we just never looked at it that way. We're like, nope, this isn't enough. We got to raise the bar. I want to be like the guy that's in that office that's been in the business for 25 years, and I've been in the business for 6 months. Yeah. But that's how we wanted to. That's who
Remember
we
Mike
wanted to be.
Zambalo? He was there. He's in
Yeah.
the business 15 years, and like,
At
we
that
didn't even
point.
know who Mike was. And
Yeah.
you know, we're like, oh, he's got the corner office, and he works with this vice president, and we want to be like these guys. And like,
Yeah.
it's just amazing how life happens.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
It's
so
crazy.
fast.
And what's crazy to think that, because you say, like, where would you be today? Well, I know one thing. I wouldn't know anybody in this room, and you guys are the closest people to me
Yeah,
right
it's
now.
true.
Best man at my wedding, 2 groomsmen. My closest friends are right here. Maybe 2, 3 other people that I grew up with, but that's it. So if I didn't get in this business, I wouldn't have these relationships. I wouldn't have the life I have today. Where would I be?
feel the
Probably,
same
you know,
way.
again, probably still doing well because I've always been that mindset, but I'd probably be family business, construction, you know, but again, I wouldn't know any of you guys. So that's, to me, is actually what I think I've really got out of it, is the relationships that I've made in the business. You know, not just client-wise, but again, friendships that'll last forever. Because when you go through this business, you go through some tough times, and you're going through it together, side by side with somebody. There's nothing like that. You know, to have a friend like Gabe, who again got in the business after the fact, but is just such a good friend, and you know, compassionate in there, and you can have a conversation with Jared, bro. I talk about everything. You know what I mean? So like, it's nice to have that.
A lot of work relationships aren't like that.
No,
You know,
no.
sometimes, like, obviously we're all in competition with each other, but it's like not in a bad way. I feel like
Exactly.
sometimes
No, not at all.
people want to compete with each other from a negative stance.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like people
can't
think like,
explain it.
you know, again, well, you guys are competition. Yeah, but it doesn't feel that way.
No, it doesn't
Not
feel
at all.
that way.
You know what? It's just to say one more thing. What's funny is because you know now our teams have separated a little bit, right? Me and Dean were partners for the longest time, building something together. Now Dean has this beautiful branch that we're in today, and I'm running headquarters. I have our old branch, right? People are asking me all the time, and I want to set the record straight now because, well, why are you with Dean? What happened? Something happened? Not at all. Divide and conquer, bro. We have way bigger goals than you guys could even imagine, is what I tell people. You don't know, you
People
know what I
don't
mean? What
understand.
we're looking at.
People
you
always
know?
try to take like the little piece of like what anybody's
They try to
doing.
dissect it, you know?
That's how life works.
Yeah.
You know, you make sometimes in life you have to make decisions that aren't for now.
Yeah.
You know, they could be for 6 months from now or a year from now or whatever the reason is. And I think we're all in a great situation where, you know, we understand what we want, we know what we're here for, what we have to do. And again, like you said, the most important thing is to have the relationships we built from this business. You know, obviously before we got into the business, Jared and I were close and Gabe and I were close, and, you know, to kind of be in the same, you know, situation and relate to each other the way we do is amazing. You know, you don't have too many friend groups where you can relate to people like doing the same thing every day and, you know, understand each other. People don't understand. A lot of people don't understand us or me. I say it myself. They think I'm nuts. Like they think I'm crazy. You know, during that time in 2022 and 23, I went through I went through a time where, like, you know, I'm so grateful to have understood like what I had to do to get past that, because like you don't realize, you know, times like that sometimes can really, you know, make or break you, and it's up to us as individuals to be, you know, the person who determines that. And
Well, yeah,
I know none
because-
of us are like that.
Well,
We
because
don't
because
let
you could be
anything
somebody who gets salty and looks at that person and maybe envies that person that's doing better and
No, you-
hate on that person. But we're the opposite. We love seeing others do well, and that's why I enjoy, you know, again, being a leader, right? I think that's what we all enjoy that as recruiting, because we want to see others do well. There's no better feeling than being able to really show somebody the way and create a life for them that they envision, but they didn't know how to get to, right? Like that's, to me, that's the biggest thing.
A lot of people
that I
don't
can
get
give,
that.
you know.
A lot of people, it's not like selfish. A lot of people sometimes, like if you work with somebody in an industry, whether it's the auto body business or the insurance business or, you know, doing anything, you know, it's hard to like think somebody wants the best for you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's hard to believe.
I text you. We talk at the end of every month, and you say, "What are you closing this month? How much did you make this month?" We go tit for tat. It's never a competition. It's just
No,
more
it's
of like,
just-
wait, I want to know what he's doing,
know how you're
right?
doing.
Because
Yeah,
it's
100%.
it pushes me to do more because I know he's a heavy producer, and I love it. I even have loan officer friends all across the country, and we have like the circle. I have my own coach, who's a loan officer at cross country, who's a bank, and I'm a broker.
Yeah, right.
Right, like
So
it's
like you don't look at it as that, you know.
Come on, you're breaking everything. No, keep going.
Yeah, but it's not looked at as, again, competition or, you know, who's better than who, or it's just about leveling up.
Yeah.
Keeping each other where you know you want to be. Like,
finding your circle, finding your network. within
lights
the
a little
business.
fire under your ass when someone's doing better than you. It does, but it's not a bad thing. It does. You know what I mean? Like I couldn't be happier for Dean's and this office. You know what I mean? And people will look at it like, oh, what happened? Nothing happened.
Mind your business.
You know what I'm saying? Nothing happened. But like, again, people, they always try and dissect it. You know, and they're
Like
always
you
trying
said,
to figure it out.
divide
you know?
and conquer. That's how I look at
Yeah.
life, and we understand what our goals are
Yeah.
and what our vision is, and, you know, obviously, you know, sometimes, not that, I think anybody naturally, not that you care about what people think, you know, I always grew up with, like, hearing, like, this is a reflection, and I completely get that now. Like, a lot of things are a reflection on, like, whether it's your company, like if you don't represent your company well, or whatever it is. And these last 3 months of my life, right? I don't care if anybody believes it or not. Like, I've dedicated myself I committed to something. I'm gonna build it the way I wanna build it. You know, I have my family, that's priority, obviously, and that hasn't changed. You know, but sometimes I feel like whether it's people in your friend group or peers or family, could be the closest family to you, they misunderstand you sometimes. They think that by you not being available or around or whatever it is, that like you did something, or that I do something wrong, or whatever it is. And this last couple of months of my life, I feel like is a perfect example, because I know what I've been doing. You know, I'm not doing everything I would like to be doing, you know, being as consistent in the gym and, you know, doing the things that I know I need to do. But I committed to something a couple of months ago, saying I'm going to build a new business of our business in Woodbury and do what I have to do, and I'm going to sacrifice certain things. Along the way, I'm going to continue to do what I do and live my life. But, you know, those extra nights at dinner, or, you know, that text, you know, hey, meet me over here I might not be there right now because I know that,
Yeah.
I committed to something. I put a ton of money into it. I put a ton of time and care and effort and love and everything I could imagine into it.
Yeah, to get
Yeah,
to
and,
that.
and a lot of people don't understand that because they don't care about business that way.
Of course.
They don't care about business that
but
way.
Yes, and the real ones, close ones, they're gonna understand.
Yeah.
Because when they come and see what you've built, they're gonna say, "Oh, well, this is obviously what he's working on." You know what I mean?
No, when people don't do it themselves, it's not believable that I could get here at 7 a.m. and stay till
stay till-
5 o'clock in the morning. That sounds insane
No,
to
yeah.
somebody,
No,
right?
people
Like,
don't
you didn't
understand.
work 23 hours today. Like, you're a crazy person or you're a bad person. I'm not trying to tell you I did more than you today. That's just what I have going on in my life right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I feel like I've always been one to understand, like, and I've gotten better at this. Like, I used to not understand when somebody had something to do if it wasn't related to
you were
making money.
like that.
Yeah, because
You
how did
definitely
we
were
learn
like
in the
that.
business?
Yeah, because I was
you
saying
know?
it was nothing. It was business and business.
How did we
only.
learn in the business? And I think
That's what
we
it
did
was.
okay.
No, I know,
from
but
where
it is true though. We would
True.
look at people like, "What do you mean you're not at work?
Yeah, like,
what do you
what are
mean
you
you're
talking
not?
about?
Like, yeah, like, what,
You guys see me sometimes, like.
And we used to mess with you too. We used to be
What
like,
do
"All
you
right,
think, at
Gabe."
2 o'clock on a
No, we used to
Tuesday?
mess with you too.
But
yeah.
but why did I get into this? Right, like.
To have
Because
the
you wanted the freedom.
flexibility.
And you had the freedom
Yeah,
to do what you
and
wanna do.
that's all I wanted. I wanted control over my entire day. Like the
Yeah.
business I was in prior, I worked like a dog. I worked like a slave.
Yeah.
For 3-4 years, I was walking around neighborhoods and big box retail stores and just door knocking
You just
and,
wanted
and
the
doing
freedom to
sales.
create
It's
your
not
own,
what you
create your
wanted
own
to
schedule.
do.
Yeah.
It's not what you wanted
You know,
to do.
No, but you made it work, right? So we were joking with you, making fun of you, right? That you weren't putting in the same amount of time in the office, right?
I was
that we
mad at
were.
you guys.
And you get mad at us about it, you know. But we used to mess with you. But at the end of the day, again, you figured out what works for you and what's going to make you successful, and you locked in on
But
it.
to be fair, my first 2 years,
You were a big lead guy on the phone.
yeah, you started off
I
on leads.
smashed the
Yeah.
phones. I was hitting it so hard.
right, yeah.
Day in and day out, 6-7 days a week. 11 o'clock at night, a lead came in. I was already texting that lead.
I remember we'd be at Toku on a Thursday, and like you'd be the only one that would get up from the table and walk outside when
take
the
the call- take the
phone
lead.
rang. A lot of people don't have that.
Because I was competing with the other guys for those leads. And in my mind, I was like,
That's what it was. It's-
my phone's fucking ringing right
I'm
now.
answering
I'm
it.
taking this.
But
I'm taking this right now.
But it's funny because again, you have that mentality. A lot of guys don't, right? So, our team, right? We get leads. You know how many times? Again, I won't take them because I let the guys take them. I'm looking at my phone. It's ringing once, it's ringing twice. I look, this guy's not on the phone. That guy's on the phone. How are you not answering the phone?
Yeah, no.
You know what I mean? Like if you're not like, let's go. You know what I mean? Like every lead that comes in should be mine. I don't care. There's other people that want to eat on the floor. Your mentality should be that way. I'm not saying to take every lead from everybody, but your mentality should be that you want everyone.
Eat what you
know?
kill.
Yeah, 100%. And unfortunately, that's the business we're in. This is a commission-based
Yeah.
industry. So if you don't put in that time, put in that work, take that lead, take the extra time to make the extra calls, then don't do this. It's just
Yeah.
maybe it's not
Yeah.
for you. You know what I mean? But fortunately enough, again, we're surrounded by the right people that all keep pushing us. to
And
make
I would
sure
say
we
I would
level up.
say that's what I was fortunate about.
Surrounding with the right
when
people, right?
when I got into my office and I took the opportunity.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything but high producers. I didn't know anyone who
you're
wasn't
surrounded by
I didn't know anyone that was doing less than $7.5 million a month.
Exactly. You're
Right.
surrounded
So
by
I
nothing
knew
but-
I knew nothing else.
Yeah.
Right.
And you're bound to level up to that, and that's what
Yeah.
ends up happening. That's what ends up happening.
We talk about it all the time, like having months like that some of us have, and
Yeah.
it's just like it happens, and you sit there like, how did this even happen? How is this possible?
Yeah.
When I go back to even a couple of years ago when we were working together at a different company, and we were frustrated at ourselves for not hitting a certain standard.
Yeah.
Now when you look back, like I had my best year of my career in 2024 in an economy that is not even explainable how challenging it was compared to every other year we've seen the last how many years that we've been in the
It's
business.
crazy to think
And,
that, right?
yeah, so
You had your best year that year.
I'm grateful for every single moment, for the moments that like in 2022 when we started this platform and we started doing a lot of media, and a lot of people said, "What do you think? You're a movie star? What do you think?"
Yeah.
you're
Oh, I
gonna
used to get it all
miss?"
the time. Even my family were like, "Oh, what do you guys think you're acting?" I'm like, "No."
Zach.
What are you
Zach-
doing that for?
Zach and
Like
I
people
talk
don't
about
get
it all the time. Something had to play a part in the success.
Yeah.
That, a lot of us and myself saw in that year or two after.
Of course.
Putting the work in You know, no matter what time it is in life, whether it's the good times or the bad times, if you stay consistent and you stay the course, you know, you're eventually going to see the results that you're looking for. And a lot of us don't realize, it's like when you're on the brink of greatness is when a lot of people quit. You know, I do it in the gym all the
3
time.
feet from
You
gold.
know,
That's why 3 feet from
I
gold.
got to a point, I remember last year where I remember we were at the Paramount for a boxing event, and I took a selfie in the bathroom in a green tight shirt. And like I was getting a lot of compliments, like, oh, you look so big and you look so great. And like I was like 6 months into the gym at that point, and I've never been at the gym for 6 months. It just never happened. And it was an amazing feeling. Like it's an amazing feeling. So to
And then
touch
you're
on
like,
what
all
I'm
right, I can
saying.
take my foot off.
Yeah, to
the
touch
pedal.
on what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
He's
Yeah,
like,
It's
I'm
like I
good.
wouldn't take
I'm
my
good.
foot off the pedal, like, you know, with other, like, it's so strange.
It's funny how
because,
you wouldn't do that in
you know,
any other part of your life.
You can do it at work. You
Yeah,
you
you
lose
would
everything.
never do it.
It's
You would
just
never
it's
do
just
it.
priorities.
No,
right? It's
yeah.
just like what's important to you.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And it's important, but not important enough, obviously, if you don't, obviously, every day bring yourself to it.
I'm excited for what's to come. Aside from business, we all have phenomenal things going on in our life, and you know, to do this with you guys and with some of our other people that aren't here, of course.
Yeah.
You know, that's what wakes me up every day. You know, my family and us, and
Absolutely.
you know, what we do. And not everybody understands that or sees that, but as long as we know ourselves, like
What's our why, right? We know what our why is, right? So, and I think we all have the same why, right?
Yep.
Family, right, is bringing yourself to the highest level that you can take your capability, right? That's what it comes down to.
And that's, I think, what season 3 is going to be about. So
Yeah.
I appreciate you guys. You know, until next time, and that's it, man.
And that's a fucking wrap.
That's a wrap.
That's it.